You guys ready? Okay, I'd like to call the August meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission to order. Paula, would you call the roll?
Alan Brown.
Present.
Jeffrey Parks.
Present.
Suzanne Broadbent. Present. Heather Clemmer. Neela Crank-Clements.
Present.
Greg Eddington. George Massey.
Present.
Mary Jo Meacham.
Present.
And Ann Zacharitz. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to go over the agenda. The meeting procedures on the back of your front page of your agenda. The chairman will announce each case and ask interested parties to indicate their presence by raising their hand. Commissioners will discuss the details of the case, calling on staff for details. Following this discussion, commissioners may choose to ask questions of parties present. Interested persons may speak to support or protest the application. The applicant will be entitled to one brief rebuttal. Interaction between applicant and protestants on the floor is not permitted. Persons speaking are asked to approach the center podium one at a time to introduce themselves by name and address and to present their position as succinctly as possible. The Commission asks each speaker to limit his or her remarks to no more than 5 minutes. Following the public hearing on an application, the Commission will take one of the following actions. 1, approve the certificate of appropriateness. 2, continue the proposal. 3, deny the proposal with prejudice, which means the application may not be resubmitted for at least 1 year unless the Commission determines that circumstances have changed. And 4, deny the proposal without prejudice, which means the applicant may reapply at any time. When an application has been approved and after a 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the CA to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA has been issued. And finally, contact HP staff for final design review, inspection, or to withdraw items that will not be completed. And then one more thing, any person aggrieved by any decision granting or denying a CA may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the Commission decision. Okay. With that, let's go to item 2 from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer. Katie?
Our only item to report is that the city will be hosting 2 hands-on wood window repair workshops this fall. One will be September 16th, and one will be October 21st and 22nd. So a 1-day and a 2-day, and those are open for homeowners, for contractors who work on historic buildings, and it's really great, intensive hands-on training on how to repair and maintain wood windows. We'll have more information about that on the website shortly.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Let's go on to item 3, acceptance of the minutes for the previous meeting on July 6th.
Mr. Chair, there is a typo, I believe, on page 23. 912 Northwest 40th Street is listed as being in Putnam Heights. I believe that's Crown Heights.
Which item is that?
Item 23.
23, okay.
Page 23.
Should be...
Crown Heights, I believe.
Okay. All right. Any other comments, corrections? Is there a motion to accept with that change?
Move to accept as amended.
Second.
Second.
Been moved by Jeff Parks and second by Neela Crank-Clements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved or accepted. And on to item 4, the code enforcement report. Is anybody here from the city to talk today? Doesn't look like it. So
We have a new inspector that's just started with historic districts. So if anyone has questions about the report, you can just forward those to Angela or to me, and we'll get those to the inspector.
okay, I have one that I received. I'll send to you. Okay, now we're on to
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to request moving
7.
items 7A and B to this moment in the agenda.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, been moved by Jeff Parks and Neela Crank-Clements to move items C, A, and B up to this point. All in favor?
Aye.
7A and B.
Excuse me, 7, A, and B.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. On to 7A and B. Katie?
Sorry, I think we took those managing the PowerPoints by surprise. These are, each of these is a new designation of a historic landmark, which is not something that the commission gets to do every month, so we wanted to get those taken care of right off of the top of the meeting. The first one is the Milk Bottle Grocery Building at 24th and Classen. And this property has already been listed on the National Register of Historic Places. It is located within the Urban Design District overlay, but will now have the additional recognition and protection of being designated locally as a historic landmark. I will just quickly read the resolution that summarizes the significance of the building. A resolution of the City of Oklahoma City Historic Preservation Commission recommending designation of the Milk Bottle Grocery Building as a historic landmark. Whereas the Milk Bottle Grocery Building is located within the incorporated area of the City of Oklahoma City at 2426 North Classen Boulevard. Whereas the Milk Bottle Grocery Building has been identified in historic surveys of the City of Oklahoma City and in its listing on the National Register of Historic Places as historically significant. And whereas the Milk Bottle Grocery Building is a part of the heritage of the city, reflecting elements of cultural, social, political, and architectural history. Whereas the Milk Bottle Grocery Building, based upon its age, location, and its architectural integrity, meets the criteria for designation identified in Chapter 50, Section 7250.2 of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2010 and detailed in the prepared report. And whereas the Milk Bottle Grocery Building, an example of early commercial development at the intersection of key transportation thoroughfares and with the later addition of the roadside architectural feature of the milk bottle itself, illustrates multiple phases of the commercial development during significant periods of Oklahoma City's growth in the early 20th century. Whereas the Milk Bottle Grocery Building's method of construction and unique characteristics of location and plan represent a style, design, and craftsmanship unique to the past. Whereas the Milk Bottle Grocery Building has served for generations as an iconic visual feature defining its intersection and surrounding neighborhoods due to its unique location and physical characteristics. And whereas the Historic Preservation Commission is charged to safeguard the heritage of the city by preserving and regulating historic landmarks and districts. Whereas this action is consistent with the provisions of Chapter 59, Sections 3302.2, 7250.1, and 7250.2 of the Historic Preservation Ordinance contained in the Zoning and Planning Code, Oklahoma City Municipal Code. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Historic Preservation Commission that the designation of the Milk Bottle Grocery Building as a historic landmark be recommended to the Planning Commission and to City Council, and the owner of the Milk Bottle Grocery Building be commended for her dedication to the preservation and rehabilitation of this significant historic structure. So the Commission's...
Is the owner present?
I don't believe she was going to be present today. The Commission's role is to officially recommend the designation, and then that will go on to Planning Commission and to City Council.
Any questions for Katie or staff?
Not a question, just a comment. I think it's pretty incredible that, the little wedge-shaped building that someone built on the interurban line years ago, we would end up celebrating in such a way as a city. But I think it's a great part of our city and defining who we are. And unless anyone else has further comment or question, I would move to recommend the rezoning and designation of the Milk Bottle Grocery Building as an historic landmark, HL overlay to the Planning Commission and City Council, and adopt the resolution provided as a part of the staff report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Jeff Parks and seconded by Suzanne Broadbent. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, recommended. Next.
Our second one, 7B, is the Sieber Grocery and Apartment Hotel Historic Landmark Designation. I think it's interesting that they're both grocery stores. So I don't think anyone thinks of them as grocery stores now. And again, this one is also individually listed on the National Register of Historic Places and is currently under the Downtown Design Review Committee. So this will add the historic landmark overlay to further honor and recognize this historic structure and add the additional protection for historic buildings. And I'll read that resolution. A resolution of the City of Oklahoma City Historic Preservation Commission recommending designation of the Sieber Grocery and Apartment Hotel as a historic landmark. Whereas the Sieber Grocery and Apartment Hotel is located within the incorporated area of the City of Oklahoma City at 1305 to 1313 Hudson Avenue, and whereas the Sieber Grocery and Apartment Hotel has been identified in historic surveys of the City of Oklahoma City and its listing on the National Register of Historic Places as historically significant, and whereas the Seaver Grocery and Apartment Hotel is a part of the heritage of the city, reflecting elements of cultural, social, political, and architectural history, and whereas the Seaver Grocery and Apartment Hotel, based upon its age, location, and its architectural integrity, meets the criteria for designation identified in Chapter 50, Section 7250.2 of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code, 2010, and detailed in the prepared report, and whereas the Seaver Grocery and Apartment Hotel, through its relationship to the development of downtown and midtown Oklahoma City, has significant character, interest, and value as part of the development of Oklahoma City, whereas the Seaver Grocery and Apartment Hotel is a rare remaining example of coordinated neighborhood commercial and residential development that once proliferated from downtown into the midtown area at a key point in Oklahoma City's transformation into an urban environment representing the historic heritage of the community, and whereas the Seaver Grocery and Apartment Hotel, an example of a commercial grocery and multifamily apartment hotel in the commercial style with Tudor influences, embodies distinguishing characteristics of its architectural style and representative building types, and contains elements of design unique to the past, whereas the Seaver Grocery and Apartment Hotel, credited in part to architect Patrick Weathers, first state architect for Oklahoma's State Board of Affairs and architect of numerous civic buildings across the state, is a rare commercial project by an architect whose individual work has influenced the development of the community, and whereas the Seaver Grocery and Apartment Hotel anchors the northern boundary between the commercial development of Midtown and the residential neighborhoods to the north, serving as a visual and physical feature of the neighborhood through its massing height and location, and whereas the Historic Preservation Commission is charged to safeguard the heritage of the city by preserving and regulating historic landmarks and districts, and whereas this action is consistent with the provisions of Chapter 59, Section 3302.2, 7250.1, and 7250.2 of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, now therefore be it resolved by the Historic Preservation Commission that the designation of the Seaver Grocery and Apartment Hotel as a historic landmark be recommended to the Planning Commission and the City Council. The owner of the Seaver Grocery and Apartment Hotel be commended for their dedication to the preservation and rehabilitation of this significant historic structure.
Is the owner present for this one?
Yes.
You want, come up so we can commend you. Okay. We come in. Thank you for doing this. Is there a motion?
I would like to recommend the rezoning and designation of the Seaver Grocery and Apartment Hotel as a historic landmark to the Planning Commission and City Council, and adopt the resolution provided as part of the staff report.
Second.
Moved by Neil Crank Clements, second by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, this one also recommended. Thank you. All right, now we're on to 5, continuance, announcements, and requests. And first case, Jeff?
I believe there may be someone here to speak on one of the items listed on the continuance announcements docket. Is that true?
A1.
This is 2212 Northwest 26th Street, HPCA 16-00078.
Is anybody here who would like to speak on that case? If not, we will continue all of them.
Continuing them
Both of
into
them.
the...
Yep, to October for each of them.
It's going to be October the
5th.
5th. Okay.
Okay, is there a motion for that?
Move to continue both listed items to October 5th meeting.
A1 and 2. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Jeff Parks, second by Neil Crank Clements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, they are continued. And B, new requests.
We actually have 2 new requests for continuance, 16-00100 and 16-00115, both to be continued to October 5th.
Okay. Move to continue 16-00100 and 16-00115 to the October 5th meeting.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Jeff Parks and second by Neil Crank Clements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, those items are continued. A lot of movement here. On to now 6 public hearings.
Nothing under dilapidated structures or National Register nominations. We have 4 items on the consent docket. We did have one of those items about which we received a couple of comments from the public, and those were distributed at your seat.
So in that regard, I'd like to pull item number 2 from the consent docket. Are there any other items that we want to pull from the docket, or are we ready to? Okay, well then I would move approval of the consent docket items numbered 1, 3, and 4.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Jeff Parks and seconded by Suzanne Broadbent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the consent docket is approved without item 2. And so, on to 2.
HPCA 16-00120 at 616 Northwest 21st Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Sunbeam Arc LLC for certificate of appropriateness to 1, repair and modify existing sidewalk at entrance to building, elective. And again, you've got a couple of comments from the neighborhood and from some individual property owners, and you also should have a kind of supplemental site plan that gives dimensions for the sidewalk as proposed that wasn't part of your original staff report.
Joe?
Chairman, I'm going to have to recuse myself, but if I do, we will not have a quorum. Will we? Oh, we do have 5.
We do.
Oh, we do.
You're
Okay, well,
fortunate.
Great.
You were excused. Okay, so let's go on to the, as soon as Joe leaves. You can't hear anything. Is the applicant present for this? Applicant present for Sunbeam Arc LLC? Yes. Okay. Didn't recognize.
Floyd Simon, and I'm the applicant for the CA.
Okay. Mr. Simon? All right, any questions or comments on this?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Sam.
Well, have you seen the objections raised by the property owners?
Yes, I read one of the letters last week and then the other one this morning, yes.
Okay. Well, what is your response to?
We are proposing the sidewalk and the landscape plan for the building to update it to make it better fit with the actual building. You know, it was built in '65, so it is a little bit different than the rest of the structures in Mesta Park, and it's more of, we're not trying to get people to park on the street there, to use it to walk. It's more of just the landscape, give it a better appearance from the street. There is no parking on the, it would be that south side of 21st, so and there's a sign right next to where the sidewalk would actually be. So, I mean, we're not telling people to park there and just walk in. There's ample parking in the back of the structure.
And as an urban neighborhood, it would not be uncommon for someone to arrive on foot to this building.
Correct.
And right now, their option, if arriving on foot, is to walk up the driveway.
Yes, there's a small sidewalk, as you can see in the pictures, that's near the driveway.
Right.
So we're just trying to clean that up, repair it, and kind of fit the lines of the building more.
But the proposed width of the sidewalk it widens out to 12 feet wide by the time it gets to the street, if I
Yeah,
read that right.
it flares, yes, to the sidewalk. Because it fits the angle of the opening.
Right. And I think that a flared walk is not, I think that's fairly appropriate for, you know, the design of the building. It just seems that the overall final width is pretty wide.
Okay.
I don't know what anyone else thinks. I mean, that's kind of like driveway width by the time you get out to the street.
Marva Ellard, Sunbeam Arc LLC. I just wanted to address Mr. Park's comments. We hired a landscape architect, and if you'll notice that funny little piece between the building and the column, I think there was a picture that showed it, that where the arrow is, nothing grows there. And so it's flower bed, but nothing grows there. And so what Jamie Sismadia did is she took the angles on that and turn that into a sidewalk. And so the dimensions of the sidewalk were determined by that space. And so as you can also see in this picture that Angela's got up, this whole front corner of the existing sidewalk has been run over by trucks and whatever over the years, and it's crumbling. So Jamie designed a plan that takes out a lot of that sidewalk and allows for landscaping along that side of the driveway. So we're giving up paving on that side in exchange for landscaping, and then we're putting a sidewalk out that connects the building to the front sidewalk and has landscaping on it also. So this building is no longer part of this building. This building has a different purpose than this building, and so we wanted it to be able to stand on its own and have its own identity. And there was a lot of landscaping around this building at times. There were a lot of different small ornamental trees and things, but those are all gone, and so now we're trying to put something back. You know, I don't think the prettiest part of this building is the outside of it, so we're kind of trying to enhance it, but it's a mid-century building. It's not a 1928 bungalow, and so we're trying to make it look like what it is, only maybe a little bit softened version of that.
It seems to me that this sidewalk is, it'll serve the purpose of people obviously being able to walk on it, but it's really a decorative element as part of the landscape. So in thinking about the neighbors' concerns, and I do take those seriously because I live in a neighborhood that has parking issues all the time, I am wondering if it makes any sense to just stop this sidewalk at the existing sidewalk that runs along the street, instead of extending it all the way out to the street and possibly encouraging.
I thought there was an extension out to...
Stopping it right there.
You mean not taking it out to...
All the way to the street.
I don't know that we care about that other than just the people drop off. I mean, they could drop them off before they get to that. I mean, it just... I don't know that that's the defining element of this. I think we can get rid of that.
No, I know we don't want as a commission necessarily to redesign right up here, but I think that might address the neighbors' concerns about encouraging parking along that street, which is apparently already an issue.
FS told me it was something Wolf Night. What was it? Yeah, I think there's, until the kids get settled in school, people don't know where to park, so they're just parking wherever they see available parking. And so I think we like the continuity to the street, but you know, we're certainly willing to talk about that. I think it's more of like, hi.
Is there anybody else that'd like to speak to this? Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Sherry Helsel, 609 Northwest 21st. I'm one of the concerned neighbors. If you go back and look at one of the shots that you showed previously that's looking out from that opening, directly across from that is where my house sits. And the neighbor and I that share that drive do have concerns about the invitation to park. With the sidewalk being there. No, there's not anything that says park and come in, but let's face it, if there's a sidewalk there and we're in a hurry, what are we going to do? You know, we're going to park and say the no parking sign doesn't apply to me. As a matter of fact, I have seen Miss Ellard park in the no parking zone and go into the building. So there are issues with, you know, no, the rules don't apply to me where that is concerned. There was a school event the other night, and there were 7 cars, I believe, that were actually ticketed for parking in the no parking zone. It is one of those items that, you know, if we think we can get away with it, we're going to, because we are too lazy to, you know, jump out and run in like you should. As far as it being a design element, there's no precedent for a sidewalk on that building. There are plenty of landscape options. Everybody in this room has landscaping at their house. The legitimacy of needing a sidewalk to make a landscape pretty really seems to fall a little bit short of beautification. Most of us would prefer to have things like trees and flowers and that type of thing. But my biggest concern really is the parking. When you put parking behind a driveway, I've talked to several neighbors in the area, not just in Mesta Park, but in some of the other areas too, that have had instances where they have drives behind or across from an area where people park, and they've had those issues where somebody has backed into them. So it's also a kind of a collision hazard as well as just an annoyance nuisance thing. And I think there are other options available. I don't think a sidewalk is going to make or break their landscape plan.
Okay, any more? If folks would like to, okay, one more. Hello?
Good afternoon. My name is Jackie Morris. My daughter has the home directly across from there, and I own a piece of property at 701 Northwest 20th and 703 Northwest 20th, which is catty corner to the Sunbeam House.
Can you also sign in too, please?
I will.
Thank you.
And my concern is that I have the parking on that side of the street. I often wonder why we're even talking about a sidewalk, because is there ulterior motives to remove the no parking up and down that street? That's a very narrow street. The buses go down that street. Parents park along that street to turn to go pick up their children at Wilson. So that's, from my understanding, that is the reason why they made that side of the street no parking. Because a line of traffic during school hours go all the way down and around that. I just think that, you know, I must agree that I've never known that a sidewalk is a beautification. One thing we strive in this neighborhood is green space. We like our grass, we like our trees. There was a really big tree in the corner of that lot, or in the corner of their yard, and they cut it down. So there's just nothing but a big stump there now. So there's plenty of landscaping solutions to this. And I also think that the sidewalk is wider than a driveway, 10 feet. I mean, there's no sidewalk. At least I'm not aware of a sidewalk in this neighborhood that's 10 feet wide. Most of them have, within, I think they're 4 feet. So that just seems excessive to me. If they wanted to bring the sidewalk out to meet the sidewalk, which seems to be a standard in the neighborhood, if you look around, I think you've got an aerial view. It'll show you how most of the houses, or there was a house there, I think, on the lot next door, where the sidewalk connects, the house sidewalk connects to the sidewalk along, but there's no sidewalk to the street. There's no sidewalk to my daughter's street. There's no sidewalk to Sherry's. So that doesn't seem to be a consistent thing in the neighborhood. I've driven around and looked at my property on 20th Street. Does not have a sidewalk to the street. So it's encouraging this parking, because if you do have a sidewalk, that makes people think that they can park there.
Okay. Did I hear the owner say that you'd be willing to give up the extension to the street?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve HPCA 1600120 with the specific findings that the proposed work will not have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property and complies with all relevant guidelines and sections of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in Section C or D of the staff report, with the conditions that the extension from the existing sidewalk to the street is not approved. Is that the way to say it?
Yeah.
Marva, did you say you wanted to make a comment? Sorry, I didn't understand that.
I'm satisfied with Ms. Broadbent's motion. I just want to make the comment that it seems like the neighbors are making little picky things. That tree was dead, so we could have left it, but we removed it. And this is a commercial building. Like I said, it's not a 1924 bungalow, so it has a different presence. And I think we have plenty of green space around this building, and we have plenty of parking in the back. I might have parked in front of it once because there was a Cox Cable truck in the driveway, but we do not encourage our people or our visitors to park on the street. And we said that we would maintain the no parking on our side of the street. If they would like to flip sides with us and have no parking on their side and us have parking on our side, we'd be happy to do that. But I think they're the ones that need the parking on their side. But I am happy to accept your vote on Ms. Broadbent's motion.
Okay. One thing I was going to comment on, that they're also breaking up that existing concrete a little bit, which won't be quite as wide, with some planting areas, which I think is a good feature. So, okay, so it's been moved by Suzanne. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, been moved by Suzanne Broadbent, second by Jeff Parks. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay. And I'd like to say why I'm voting no. I do appreciate that the applicant is reducing the mass of concrete next to the drive. I think that's fantastic. I just don't see that it's necessary to add another walkway. What is it? Just a few feet from that existing 10 feet and the widest portion from the existing concrete walkway. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the case has been approved with condition. Next case. Now we're going to go to D, correct, Katie?
Yes. Cases for individual consideration, HPCA 16-00059 at 436 Northwest 27th Street, Jefferson Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Red Bar Properties, LLC for certificate of appropriateness to 8, replace or repair windows required.
Okay, is the owner present?
Katie, do we have comments on this?
I do not believe we received any comments on this one. Staff had recommended a continuance because there were some discrepancies in what they described in the application and then the specifications that were submitted. If the owner's not here, then we probably want to continue it to the October 5th meeting to give them time to address those concerns.
Okay, is there a motion to continue?
I move to continue HPCA 16-00059 to the October 5th meeting.
Second.
Moved by Neela Crank Clements, second by Jeff Parks. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. The item is continued.
HPCA 16-00060 at 800 Northwest 39th Street, Crown Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Lisa Penton for certificate of appropriateness to 6, amend previously approved fence to incorporate retaining wall at south end of yard required.
Okay, is the applicant present? Oh. You don't look like Lisa.
I can do a quick change if you'd like.
And you are?
I'm John Penton.
Okay, figured.
Husband of the owner. So.
Thank you. Okay, any questions, comments? This is an amendment.
I make a motion to approve HPCA 16-00060. Oh, with the specific findings and then unique circumstances noted by staff, or included by staff in the staff report.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Joe Meacham and seconded by Neela Crank Clements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approved. Thank you. Next.
HPCA 16-00099 at 417 Northwest 19th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Christopher George. Sorry, I'm tangled up. For certificate of appropriateness to 1, convert window to French doors at back of house, elective. 2, install deck at rear of structure, elective. And 3, install wood trim at windows over existing siding, elective.
Welcome.
Chris George.
Okay, great. Any questions, comments on this one?
I have the same question as staff in regards to the installation of the trim and the way that it would be, how the existing non-historic siding would come up to it. Were you proposing to cut back the siding to install the wood trim?
If there is a picture in there that specifically shows the window, there is a metal trim around the actual window that sticks out further.
Right.
The wood trim would actually butt up against that metal piece that goes around the existing. So there might be a little bit better picture in the front.
Would you be installing the wood trim on top of the existing siding?
Yes, ma'am.
That's the part that I have a concern about, just because just the way they install it. Usually they take off the historic trim is gone.
Correct.
And so then they've put a little metal thing around the metal trim around the window, and then they butt the metal siding into the trim.
Correct.
So it seems like if you were just pushing a piece of trim on top of the metal siding, that it's not a flat surface.
Because of the way the siding sits and putting that piece of trim on top, all that siding is actually level on there. It has a dip to it, but all along that. So it'd be just like similar putting a shutter up against the window in the same instance.
So it's kind of fake.
Correct.
It's fake trim.
I guess it just concerns me, just the long-term maintenance of that, of doing something that is really not, you're still on the right, if we do it on the right side, it would still push the siding flat. I don't see how it would be hard.
It's a metal siding.
Metal, right.
So it wouldn't be pushing anything. It's not a plastic or vinyl.
I mean, in that case, it just seems like water would come in.
The trim doesn't do anything. It's just there for appearance. It's already trimmed with metal. So
Right.
it's for looks only.
I understand that, but I just don't see
We'd just be getting back to the look of the original
I
house. That's the purpose of it, just so that it has a trim around the window versus just the siding up against it.
I like your idea. I'm not against your idea.
No. And I've talked to 2 different trim carpenters that I use on a regular basis. And also there's eaves that go over the house. So the conversation I had with Katie as well is there's not any windows that are truly exposed out into the elements. The actual facade at the top goes over all the windows on the first and the second floor. So there would be no instance, even if, for example, if you were to put a shutter on those exact same windows, it's the same effect as far as, screwing them into the building itself. It wouldn't cause any adverse effects on the windows and or the siding.
I think the shutters, to me, shutters and trim are 2 different things. It just seems, in shutters, you're not intentionally trying. Anyway, that's my thought. I don't think it's an appropriate. I don't think it's a good way to attach trim to the house by kind of nailing down the non-historic material to the original material. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, trim is normally part of the architectural envelope.
It is, but
integral. It's not applied. So that's.
But people do these all the time. I mean, they don't do this all the time. They have siding all the time, and nobody. I mean, it just. It would be an unusual siding, in my opinion, to not have problems later on. But that's my thought.
Yes.
Our Preservation Review Committee met Monday at 5:30 at the Carriage House and and talked about this house, and I know that we can't ask Mr. George to do this, but most of us have had very good luck taking siding off of historic houses. The wood siding under it is normally in much better shape than people would ever imagine that it would be. And I know there's also some windows that are covered up by siding that would probably pop out if the siding came off. And it's just a suggestion that maybe he explore that. But we appreciate his willingness to take this project on and to spend money on it and to bring it back. But the exterior probably could still use a little more love.
Okay.
I have a comment on the French doors. I do think the guidelines support the installation of the doors removing the window and installing the doors. Just one question, the photograph we're looking at now, the work has been done, correct? So I think we need to amend the staff report to say we're reviewing the work has already been done, we're reviewing it as if it has not been done. But other than that, I think it looks good. I think it supports the guidelines.
So those doors are the final doors, the French
Yes, sir.
doors?
Yes, sir.
And was it intended to be this one?
No, that's actual the front door.
The front door, okay.
Yes.
All right. Oh, I see, there's a drawing of single pane. Okay.
I would say one more time, I do not think it's appropriate. It's not the way that you install siding, wood or vinyl. You go up to the trim. You do not put the trim on top of either the wood siding or the other side.
Yeah, and I agree with you about the siding. I agree with you, Neela, about the door. I think that there are parts that staff has recommended approval that I'm on board with approving. The part that is the wood trim around the windows that I don't know if the owner would like to continue that item to look at other options, or how you'd like to do that.
We have looked at options as far as replacing it with the wood that was existing there. The cost obviously is a lot higher than what we would like to endure in this project.
Sure.
So we're trying to beautify the windows itself by leaving them, because of the fact that it is metal siding. Cutting the metal siding is a lot more difficult than cutting a wood or even a vinyl siding. So that's where the part goes into play. And having a conversation with the person that's actually helping with the restoration and cleanup of making sure all the windows are functioning, he has stated that a lot of the windows that he's done in and around the neighborhoods, when they were originally built, a lot of the windows were put in and the wood siding put up against to the windows, and then the trim was put around the windows itself on top of the siding itself. So and having conversations with several people that have worked in and around windows and trim, those were the recommendations.
So staff's recommending continue. Item 3.
I mean, is there any suggestions from anyone as far as what you would do in that instance with the metal trim actually sticks out further than the window itself and butting that up against there? Is there something that you would recommend do differently than what I proposed?
I mean, unfortunately, for me, I just think that there's not. It's just not we're always talking, I mean, we're working with, historic trim, and then we've got, I just don't see that how you can, what you would do here. Just leave it, save money, because you can keep it like you have it.
Sure. It's just the look from the street, the windows just don't.
I mean, I
look.
agree with you on that. I mean, I think it was a good idea to look at. I just don't think that in the long run it's a good long-term solution for applying new wood over non-historic material and kind of nailing it down to the house.
Have you looked to see if there's wood siding underneath it?
There is, but it's not in great shape.
Not.
I do think and we talked about this before, I think if we had examples of where that method has been used to see how it looks, that might help people. And if you had some examples of the wood siding installation that your contractor described, because from my observation, I feel like typically we see siding butting up against the trim, not underneath the trim. But if there were some examples of that condition, I think that might also help sway.
Most of the ones that I've seen that have that actually are vinyl, and the trim that's around the windows is vinyl. So the hard part is this with it being metal. I obviously don't want to put metal around, the houses that have the metal siding around that, typically in the windows, it's a solid piece of metal, not an actual siding. So between, if there's two windows in the front, say on this particular house, they actually put the siding in between those windows, and the house next door to that specifically has just the metal trim literally right between both of the windows from a cap standpoint.
So you're asking for some documentation of that? Okay. Would you like to move something?
So staff has recommended approval of items 1 and 2, but there's a condition on the trim. So would we have to continue item 1 along with item 3? Because it's the same trim we're talking about, right? Over the metal siding?
So the proposal is to put the same type of trim around the new doors and around the existing windows. So I think I think 1 and 2 could be approved with the condition that, as it says, an appropriate finish and trim be submitted prior to release of the CA. And if that's going back with the typical metal siding detail like is already on the house, then that would be fine. Or if the applicant waits until something else is approved for the other trim details,
Item 3.
that could be revised as well.
Item 3.
So Mr. George, would it be helpful for us to, if everyone agrees, to go ahead and approve those items 1 and item 2 with that condition?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then I'll move to approve HPCA 16-00099, items 1 and items 2, with the specific findings listed in the staff report and the condition listed as well.
Can I ask a question in regards to the trim around the windows? If it's possible to cut that metal siding and move the metal piece that's currently around the window over and that trim is set inside there, is that something that would be considered? Does that make sense?
That's part of item 3, though, trim.
Well, he has the trim on the French door, too.
Well, I think that, but the condition is that the trim technique has to be approved, right? Mm-hmm. So that's part of then item 3, sort of a global trim solution. But that's something to think about, look at.
So on number 3, would that be something that you would consider is moving the metal that's around the window currently? If I was able to cut that metal siding to put trim around, wood trim around, does that make sense?
Yes.
There's a metal piece that runs around the window currently. If we were able to pull that back, because I've also seen that in several instances where that trim, that metal piece that's around the window is pushed back, and then the trim is put around the window there.
That is something I think I would consider. I'd want to see some detail about how that's going to happen.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion right now on 1 and 2. Right? Did you move that, Neela?
Is it 1 and 2? Sorry. Yes, 1 and 2. Uh-huh.
With the condition. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's moved by Neela Crank-Clement, second by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, items 1 and 2 are approved with condition, and on to item 3.
We continue to September 7th.
Do you need a motion? Make a motion to continue HPCA 16-00099 to the
September 7th.
September 7th meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Joe Meacham, second by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 3 is continued. We'll see you in September. You did a song.
I'll start singing.
Item 4 has been continued already on the continuance requests. Number 5, HPCA 16-00111 at 209 Northwest 32nd Street, Edgemere Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Frank Crabtree by Richard Cody of American Home Services for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace front windows required.
Okay, is the applicant present? Doesn't look like it. All right, and you have, I guess we'll continue. What you recommended anyhow, so.
We had a staff comment on this one too, right? Or we had a neighborhood comment on this one as well.
I didn't see that report. Okay. Well, anyhow, we
Looks
need
like
to-
the neighborhood suggested an outright denial, but the continuance sounds like the right thing to do.
Okay. All right.
I just had a comment. I found this one very difficult to determine what was going on with the staff report. Did anybody, was it clear or not?
So they had proposed replacing the windows and submitted documentation of the existing windows and submitted documentation of replacement windows. When we took photos, it appeared that they'd already done the work. So that might have been part of the confusion.
Okay, so was the entire house has new windows?
I can't tell you if it has new windows all the way around.
Doesn't.
It what?
Just the front.
Just the front. Okay. It was hard for me to figure out what.
Because they had documented the old windows with a whole bunch of photos, and then there were photos of new
Right.
windows in those places.
Right.
That was
Okay.
very
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are we continuing?
I guess to October 5th, since they're not here.
Okay. I make a motion to continue HPCA 16-00111 to the October 5th.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Joe Meacham, second by Neela Craig Clements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Item is continued to October.
HPCA 16-00114 at 3206 North Hudson Avenue, Edgemere Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Joan McCord for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace windows required. These are in fact 2 different houses. And this is a similar case where the windows have, windows have already been replaced. The replacement windows do meet the guidelines and are single pane, appear to very closely match the historic windows that were there. Not the level of documentation of historic windows that we typically request, but in working with the applicant, staff did feel like they warranted replacement.
Okay.
So on this one, we did recommend approval.
Is the applicant present? She is.
Joan McCord.
Okay. Welcome. Any questions on this?
This one and a few others. We keep seeing a lot of applications that the work has already been started or completed. And I wonder, not to pull you out, but were you aware that this was a historic preservation neighborhood? And you did need approval for anything on the exterior of the home?
This was my late twin brother's home, and I was unaware. I apologize. I know now.
No need to apologize, but just wondering. Thank you.
The front arched window and one on the porch are original, just the sides.
Unless anyone has any other comments, I agree with staff's recommendation. So I'll move approval of HPCA 16-00114, item 1, with the specific findings listed in the staff report.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved by Neela Craig Clements, second by Joe Meacham. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approved.
Your pen is missing. Do I need to sign in?
Somebody stole our pen.
Someone walked with it.
Someone's.
I think Paul has got it. There we go. Yeah. Man, it's going to break us. Okay, continue on to Edgemere Day here.
HPCA 16-00115 was already continued to October 5th. Next one, HPCA 16-00117 at 425 Northwest 24th Street, Jefferson Park, Ward 2.
Thank you.
Consideration and possible action on application of Christina Kovash for certificate of appropriateness to 1, demolished garage, elective.
Okay, applicant on this one present. She is. Oh, nice car.
Oh, thank you.
Carmen Guillen.
Do you guys have the pictures that I sent along?
Yes, those
With
are
the packet?
included in the
Okay.
staff report.
I bought the house in 2008.
Could you state your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Christina Kovac.
Okay.
The house was bought in 2008. It was built in 1910. I know the garage isn't the original. I think there was a remodel like back in the 40s. And I think that's probably when it was built. When I bought it, it was already leaning easterly. And right next to me is the Paseo Point Apartments. It's about 6 feet apart from the garage to that. Like I said, it was leaning in an easterly way, and I noticed like within the past 9 or 10 months, it leaning more, and some of the facade on the top buckling out, and the doors not being aligned right anymore. And so in my packet, it was probably 2 months ago, I had a contractor come out and put 2x4s to brace all in the middle of the garage, all in the back of the garage, and even the front garage door, because I don't want to tear it down, but, I did everything I could. A month later, all the wood screws were flush with the 2x4s and everything. I went out to the garage one day, and all the screws are already starting to separate, because it's still moving, and the back is cracking as well. I had my old contractor come back out and look at it, and he said there was nothing he could do any further, because you can see it's braced all over the place. And then I had Midwest Wrecking come out to look at it, and he said the same thing. It's not structurally sound anymore. And my fear is, because it's going this way, if it falls, it's going to hit the apartments, and I don't want to be responsible for that. They said that they could tear it down that way. Personally, if it was going that way into the yard, I would let it fall down. I don't care. But I don't want to be liable. And right now, I've got everything out of the garage. I just waited a month for this meeting.
So Ms. Kovac, you said it was 4 months ago that you had some work done to stabilize the garage?
It was probably, I applied for the application in July or June, and I had to wait till this meeting. So I'm just guesstimating it was April or May when I put the beams in, and like a month later, I was noticing they're already separating.
Sure. Well, it sounds like you've definitely tried to do something
Oh, I
to
tried.
make it stop leaning. What I did notice in the letter you submitted to planning staff is that you bought the house 8 years ago. Had you, and it was already leaning,
Yes.
you mentioned. So up until 4 months, you hadn't addressed any of that leaning.
I don't understand.
Up until 4 months ago, you hadn't done anything to...
Oh, no, because it was,
remedy?
I didn't notice it. It's always been leaning. I didn't notice anything until the front flat boards were buckling and the back was cracking where you can see through daylight.
Well, I think any time a structure is leaning, it's bad, so...
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that would be worse if you didn't have all that X bracing. There's a lot of
To do what?
structural support inside and outside.
Oh, I know. I thought the contractor said that could buy me like probably 2 or 3 years, and I'm like, yahoo. And then a month later, it's separating. I'm like, oh, my Lord.
And one other comment, in the letter you submitted, and you just mentioned that you'd spoken with Chris Cates of Midwest Wrecking. They are a demolition company. That is what they do. That is their business. They are not structural engineers.
Okay.
So I appreciate you explaining everyone that you've worked with, but personally I wouldn't be able to take that as, yes, it needs to come down. So I
Well,
just
it's
wanted
first
to
my
comment.
contractor that said that. He's the one that did the work, and then when he saw how quickly it was still moving, then he said he didn't have any other options. He did what he could do.
So the contractor told you first that it was structurally...
Yes, and then I just, wanted to see how much it would actually cost me to tear it down, and that's when I had them
That
come
makes
out.
sense. That makes sense.
And they actually said they have the equipment to where they can push it over that way into the yard instead of that way where it's going.
From what I read, it appears that it's ready to go. It appears dangerous to me.
I'm going to miss it, and my car won't have a garage right now, but, well, it barely fit in there anyway. It's very narrow.
It's also a small garage for 2 cars at least. And it's shallow.
I think almost everybody in these neighborhoods keeps them as long as they can. Nobody really wants to lose it. There's a lot of really bad-looking garages that are leaning that we're still happy to put our lawnmowers and stuff in. So I feel like the applicant has sufficient evidence that there's a danger.
Okay. Is that a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve HPCA 1600117. Here's the cheat sheet. Demolition. Okay.
Can't cite the staff report.
No, I cannot. I move to approve HB 1600117, item 1, with the specific finding, which would be that it is an irreparable imminent threat to health and safety. However, the work would have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district and property, but it is necessary. Oh, I'm sorry, I had to repeat that. But it's necessary because of imminent threat to public health and safety and complies with all the relevant guidelines and so on.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Joe, surprised me, George. Been moved by Joe Meacham, seconded by George Massey. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay. And I'd like to qualify that. I agree with the staff findings that I don't think it is it is not an imminent threat to health and safety. We do not have, I don't feel like we have enough information to determine that. And then the other comments I made, we're getting a lot of demolition by neglect, and I just wonder if 8 years ago when it was leaning, or 10 years ago, if people could possibly be proactive, a little more proactive, and address what's going on with our historic buildings. Maybe we can save a little bit more of them, including the garages.
I agree with you. We didn't ask her one question, which is a problem with, has been a problem with my garage and other ones, is once the foundation starts buckling up, then it's very difficult.
It is. The inside's cracked, and actually it doesn't even...
Because I saw that in the photograph.
It doesn't have, what do you call it, it's not sitting on anything. What are those called? The metal...
It doesn't have a stem wall.
It doesn't have it, yeah.
Foundation.
It just has a slab, and so,
Most
I mean,
of
I
them
think
like
that's
that.
the other problem that we have. It's very hard to fix the slab with the garage on top of it.
So we did vote. Item's been approved. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
HPCA 16-00118 at 2229 Northwest 27th Street, Shepherd, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of W. Douglas Catterall and Kristen Burkholder by Mary Jo Meacham for certificate of appropriateness to 1, remove 2 non-historic windows on the rear elective, and 2, install 2 larger windows in the rear elective.
Chairman, I need to recuse myself.
Okay. Where is that one? Must have got it out of order in all of our shuffling.
Hello. Joe Meacham,
That's
2009, Northwest 28. I'm the contractor. And our request is that there were 2 windows in the rear of the house that had been changed out and were 1/1 aluminum windows. They were for, I'm not really sure what reason. One was over a historic buffet, so it was kind of high. And I guess that they thought, well, we'll just buy the kitchen window the same size, which made the bottom of the kitchen window kind of eye level. So it was kind of an unusual height for the kitchen window. So as part of the interior remodeling, we request to put a wood window, which all of the other windows on the house are wood, and lower those windows, use the top seal, but have the windows be 4 inches taller. So we're taking the concrete seal out, moving it down 4 inches to install new windows. That's our request.
So to clarify, you're reinstalling the concrete sill at the lower elevation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that was, I think, a question that staff had, or a condition they had recommended. So you're
Just taking out
you're okay
about
with
two
reusing.
rows of bricks approximately, and the concrete sill, and then lowering that and reinstalling.
So the cast stone sills will be retained?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor Joe, I just One question. So the windows that are there now that you want to remove, whenever they installed those, did they change the size of the opening?
No. Well, did they change the size of the opening? No, they trimmed the windows were smaller. The existing windows right now are smaller than the opening because they were some kind of standard size. So there's
Infill?
a little bit of infill around the aluminum windows.
Okay. Thanks.
I can see that top.
Staff had also asked for some details
Yes.
to be
we're-
submitted,
Be happy to get more information.
just to make sure it finishes out exactly, kind of matching. Your intention is to match the other existing.
Yes, we had, the window we've chosen has the exact, it's the Colby window, and it just is kind of a weird thing, but it was almost exactly, even the outside, the outside dealing, what do you call it, the style actually had a little bead on it, exactly like the existing windows.
Okay.
I think the request is supported with the guidelines. Section 3.6.6 says new window openings may be allowed on the back facade of the back 30% of the side, of the back facade. So, and also you're taking out the non-historic and putting something that's more appropriate. So I would like to move approval of HPCA 16-00118 with the specific findings and the conditions that staff has put forth.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Neela Craig Clements, seconded by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank
Items
you.
approved with conditions. Thank you. Next.
HPCA 16-00123 at 434 Northwest 20th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Brandon Swearingen for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct deck on rear of house required, 2, replace soffit on porch required, and 3, install French doors on rear of house elective.
Okay, is the applicant present? Nope. Oh, so we have
And I'm sorry, I forgot. They emailed me earlier today, the applicants, it's a couple, and they had a funeral that they had to attend, so they are not able to be here today. I did let them know that if there were questions or concerns, it would likely have to be continued to a future meeting.
Okay, so you're recommending approval. Anyhow.
I think we did have comments from the neighborhood.
Okay, let's hear those.
We might, in the...
So?
Yes, each of the letters submitted
yesterday.
was distributed to the commission.
It was distributed and everybody's read it?
Well, it was sitting here at my desk when I arrived today.
Okay. I would say this is the gist. I think this is going to be a long process.
Shannon, can you
on this.
sign in for,
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
Shannon
Sorry about
Rundle,
that.
431 Northwest 20th. And I have lived across the street from this property since 1974 and have observed all of the changes. And no changes had been made on this property since 1999 until this gentleman bought the house. He has made major changes without a CA, and we talked to him. We thought he was willing to make some changes to really put this house maybe back in order. But I will say, I think just on the basis of his crude drawing, I've never seen you all accept scale architectural drawing like this in my life. The last page, which shows the French doors to be half as tall as the corrupt back door, I mean, have you all seen this? Okay, anyway, I think that it should be continued until we could, and that was what Diane's letter says. The last line of her letter said we would have to recommend denial, but if a continuance, if he was willing to try to work with the commission and with the committee to put this house in better order. So,
Okay.
any questions?
It's also my understanding that they were planning on filing a second application for some additional work items at this house, so perhaps with them not present today, if we continued this, they could add those to that current CA, current application, update some documentation,
and
I think there
be in better
needs to
shape
be,
the next time.
everything, because there's a boarded-up door on the exterior. It's just boarded up on the exterior of the house, and he did not indicate on anything that he was planning to do anything with that. And so there are a lot of issues that probably, and I would encourage, Katie, if there's a way that the commissioners, I know you can't go in a large group, but if you could go in groups of 2 or 3, that has been done before, and look at this property, because it, as far as I can tell, there was never a CA for the columns on the front, for the front carport, for the enlarged driveway, and the retaining wall. I don't think I was on the commission. For those of you who don't know, I was on the commission for 10 or 11 years back in, I don't know, the 90s. But I remember that Captain Coley tried to get that concrete driveway that was widened and the retaining wall. He tried to get that stopped. And I think the man had already done it, and I think back then enforcement was difficult. So there are just so many things on this application. I'd encourage you all to look at it for yourselves and just try to help all of us make it a nicer house. So he is doing it for resale, by the way. He will not be living in it.
Shannon, how long has HPI had code compliance officer like Diane Worthington?
Well, Captain Coley was our paid code
deferred.
compliant. No, he was paid by the neighborhood to do that. So
Right.
he was our code compliance officer. And it was turned in, and I can't remember, Mary Jo, if this would have come up at the commission when you worked for the city. I don't know if you remember it, but
I don't.
yeah,
No, I don't remember.
Captain Coley tried his very best to get a lot of this stopped at the time, and, you know, with the commission, I don't know. Anyway, it was just, I don't know if the man never came and then he was never found. I don't really remember that. But he didn't sell the house till '99, and this one, by the way, had asbestos siding on the outside of it. And he was advised before he sold the house in '99 to remove the asbestos siding and paint the house, which he did. And the wood siding on this house is in great shape because it was covered up, you know, by siding for a long time. But anyway, I think he at least needs to get architectural drawings with the proper dimensions and things like that, so you all and everybody else can look at what's going on.
Also, Shannon, for code compliance, in your interface with the other 8 HP areas, have you noted they have a code compliance person on the other 8 additions, the other 8 HP areas?
Some do.
Well, the city is code compliant. I mean, we have combined, Heritage Hills has always had a code compliance committee as a committee of our board of directors.
Right.
Because when we started, the city didn't hire a code compliance officer, and Captain Coley did it for a long time. Then Heritage Hills actually paid the city to hire a code compliance officer. I don't know if you all knew that. That was way back 70s probably. And so Heritage Hills has just always had a code compliance committee. I don't know if the other HP neighborhoods do or not. Suzanne, does Putnam Heights? I don't know. You all just take care of, neighbors just take care of things.
We have a design review committee, not a
Yeah.
compliance committee.
Yeah.
So Diane is also on the Preservation Review Committee?
Diane
Or just interfacing
Diane
with-
Worthington is on the board of Historic Preservation Incorporated, Heritage Hills Governing Board. Diane is the head of Preservation Review. She is also now head of Code Compliance. We have combined those 2 committees because they are so relevant to each other. We feel like, the Preservation Review people need to know what's being reported and
Right.
what's being cited for code. So Diane is now the head of both of those committees.
So I think we could continue to the September 7th meeting.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Will that give enough time?
I think so, since they're not here and since they have been pretty responsive, and I know they've been responsive to the neighborhood, I think to give them that shorter turnaround that they could potentially get back with what they need.
When was this received?
That came in after the staff reports had gone out.
Okay,
So
so
that was
they did not
supplemental.
really turn in scale drawings
Right.
with their application.
Right.
And they were told to, that's in the list of things
Yeah.
you have to do.
Yes,
You mean those are to scale?
yeah.
This,
Marva Ellard, 1521 North Chartel. This is Mr. Swearingen's second time in the last year to not file a CA on a remodel of a house in Heritage Hills. So to say he's cooperated with the neighborhood is probably a stretch, because he should know by now that that's part of the drill. And I think duly skeptical about his projects is our right and founded in fact. And so maybe that's a discussion for a workshop or something, but our property values have gotten to the point that a lot of people want to buy houses and remodel them and flip them for a profit, and that's how it works. But I think the neighborhood deserves some protection and some increased diligence. It's not a little lady wanting to put a storm door on her back door. It's somebody spending a lot of money to remodel a house to make money, and we would appreciate that consideration.
It's a common problem. Okay, so is there a motion to continue?
So move to the September 7th meeting.
Second.
Who's that, Joe? Moved by Jeff Parks and second by Joe Meacham. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, items continued.
Before we move on, can we clarify so that we can direct the applicant that we want additional, more thorough documentation of the work that's being done? Yes. The neighborhood said that, the commission never really reiterated that. Okay, just so that we can pass that along to them.
My interpretation is on the facades where there is a major change, such as doors to windows, that we would need a drawing. If there's not a construction change, we would not need drawings.
Scale drawings.
But on that one, and with that then would be the deck and the railing.
Accurate scale drawings.
And this was the soffit replacement also, right? So documentation of what the material is replacing on the soffit, and also justification for the orientation of installing the beadboard in that direction.
Do we need to do a number of qualifications here? Real good? Okay. All right, onward.
HPCA 16, oops, sorry.
Yeah.
Because he has changed all that beadboard out, and on the east side he's done that. Now, when we say we want a drawing on the side where there is a change, the east side of the property would be included. That's where the boarded up door is, and that's where he's changed the ceiling. So we would need a drawing of the east side of the property too, right? But if he's already changed the portico out, he's changed.
If all he's done is replace the soffit roof, there's not really much that a drawing would show us for that. It's more of providing the information about this is what it was, this is what it is, and why.
Okay.
But to draw beadboard
But
would
what
not
he
be
has not
helpful.
shown any of us is where this new carport was added in front of an original porte-cochere. I use one word one place, one another, because what was added was a carport. He had a porte-cochere, and it's on that side of the house that they do not connect properly.
Can you turn your microphone on?
No, this is actually how he found the house. But he didn't change beadboard. What was really the ceiling on this new construction part of the front of this house was, I first thought, no, it was plywood, but that's not right. It was like the kind of beadboard.
It's 4 by 8.
By interior.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
4 by 8 sheets of beadboard. So that's not technically replacing in kind. It's,
Not if
he would really, if you were going to hold to replacing in kind, he would have to replace it with that sheeting.
Well, we would not approve the
Right, well, that's what
beadboard
I'm saying. This is a difficult
No,
one.
she's saying I think Shannon is saying that the carport that the neighborhood believes to not have been permitted is one of the items that he's been changing, and that's where he's wanting to put, he's already installed beadboard on that
and we
thing.
don't know that
He didn't build
there
it,
would
but
be board
he's
there.
changed the non-historic property.
So we're debating a detail of something that itself was not approved, right?
And right now it'd probably just be considered non-historic.
Yep.
it's not
Yeah.
properly approved, but if he bought it that way.
We do have an
there's-
old file
Oh, he bought it that way.
on some changes to the front of the house. So because the applicant's not here, I don't want to delay too
Right.
much, but I think we will, from now to the next meeting, make sure that they submit thorough documentation, that they submit documentation of everything that they're doing, including things like doors that are boarded up right now that we assume they're going to do something to, and clarify the status of the porte-cochere, the carport, when those changes were made, what was approved, what wasn't allowed.
Yeah, it'd be nice, I actually believe that, if anyone knew Captain Coley, he may have all the files that were ever done on this house, and I intend to ask his daughter, he's passed away, but he may well have those files, because I think the first work was probably done in about 1980, and that's a long way back. But I was there.
36 years?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right.
HPCA 16-00125 at 910 Northwest 20th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Shine Properties LLC by Raul Torres for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace front door elective, and 2, remove screen door elective. When we took photos, it did look like the screen door was already gone, just to clarify. But it was pretty clearly not a historic screen door.
Okay, is the applicant present? No? Okay.
Katie, could you clarify something for me? On the last page of the page 11 of 11, there's a photo of a door that's knotty pine, and then there's a spec sheet from Lowe's of a door that's similar in look, but it's fiberglass. Why
Yes,
is that one?
the applicant initially submitted the fiberglass door.
Okay.
Staff responded and advised him that the guidelines do not allow fiberglass for front
Okay.
doors. And so they responded with this image of what appears to be a wood door, but we don't have any product information for it.
Well, I would agree that the knotty pine is not appropriate. It's not smooth enough. And the applicant is not here.
Do we want to just continue it?
The whole thing?
Yeah, I think continue to.
Okay.
Do you think, Angela, October or September? October 5th.
I make a motion to continue HPCA 16-00125 to the October 5th meeting.
Second?
Second.
Okay, it's moved by Joe Meacham and seconded by George Massey. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, items continued.
HPCA 16-00126 at 601 Northwest 24th Street, Paseo, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Anthony McDermott for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct garage elective, and 2, replace and modify driveway elective.
Okay, and there's the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Anthony McDermott, 415 North Broadway Avenue, Oklahoma City.
Okay. Are there any questions on this? We have a site plan that was left out that we received.
Were there any comments on this?
We did have a letter from one neighbor that should be in your, we got a large number of letters this time, so I'm sorry, you all have quite a stack there to fish through.
What's it look like?
Okay, are there any questions?
I saw it once.
Mr. McDermott, there's not an alley behind this, is there? Does it butt up to a house?
The alley was vacated in 1927.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay. There it is.
Katie, after reading the neighborhood letter, were there any items that we needed to address or discuss?
Let me take a look again really quickly. I believe one of their concerns was about the visibility of the garage, and I don't know, is anyone present that wanted to speak to this?
Okay.
Okay, since that's not who the letter's from, let me just quickly talk talked about the materials and the visibility. I think that we know historically there was a garage at this yard that would certainly have been visible from the side street, so we typically would not refuse to allow a garage to go back in that location or in a similar location. And I think the other concerns were largely about the materials meeting the guidelines, which were similar to points raised in the staff report.
Okay, it did, and I'm not seeing. What is the exterior, what's the exterior material?
What I've proposed is to use the 6-inch hardy board plank
Oh, okay.
with wood trim.
Is that different than what that was in the original one because the applicant?
It was.
Oh, okay.
I did send, I think Angela
Okay.
wrote to me and said that the
Very good.
material I was proposing is typically not approved, so I changed it up.
Very good.
Okay.
And it actually matches exactly what's on the house.
Okay, can we hear from the neighbor, I guess?
Lee. I live at 2515 North Dewey, which is directly behind the house. And I'm just making a statement from my wife, the actual owner of the house. She would like to ensure that the garage facade, including the vehicle doors and the pedestrian doors, remain in compliance with the home, the match the siding, and with the home, the Paseo, and the Historical Preservation Society. That's all my statement I'd like to say.
Could you also sign in, sir? Yeah, thank you. Is our pen still there?
Yeah, y'all's pen is, but I've got
I had to buy a box last night.
make ready for apartments, so I gotta make sure I got everything at all times.
Okay.
Anything else?
Okay, then, any questions for, okay, no. And Marva?
Marva Eller, 1521 North Chartel. We own the property directly east of the proposed garage, and we have no problem with the garage, but we just built one, and we were asked to put 2 doors on our garage, and I think this one should have 2 doors on it, too.
Okay. East of this.
That is true.
What is that? Okay. See, across the street?
The doors actually face, yeah, almost, not exactly because that's a short property on the other corner, but
Actually, my garage will be behind a fence in the back corner of the lot, and Marva's garage actually is right on the street. I have a little bit of a challenge in that I have a 1960 Cadillac that's going to be parked in the garage, and it is 20 feet long. And if I stick within the guidelines of the HP, then a 450 square foot garage would be 20 feet wide and have to be 22 feet 6 deep for my car to get in it. So a 20-foot wide garage does not allow for 2 8-foot doors. I guess my point would be that the garage, neither the garage doors, the side door, the front door, are visible from the street, because what is proposed is a gate that would go across this opening that you see in front of you here. So you wouldn't see my non-conforming shed, which is going away. You wouldn't see the doors at all. Now I understand the rule if a garage is right on the street, but for my purposes, a one door would work a whole lot better.
I think it's really visible from the street, but not just right on the street, it's visible from the street.
Right, right. And the 2 doors are something that are important to the look, but we also, in workshop, had a pretty lengthy discussion about the footprint of a garage and the width of the garage, and the ability to put 2 doors in the garage impacts the width of the garage, too. And it 20 feet wide, still with, still maintain the overall square footage. I don't know if there's really the room to have two doors on a garage.
Well, the garage could be turned the other direction, but then the Cadillac would fit in.
Right. The historic vehicle would
Yeah.
not fit in the historic garage.
Neela in the past has argued we don't make allowance for personal choice of vehicles, such as SUVs or
They are going to
pickups.
have to make a pretty sharp turn into this garage, though. This
That's a
isn't
good point.
a driveway that's going straight towards it. And this street tree is something that has come up with the neighbors as well. We did have a phone call yesterday. One of the neighbors called to indicate that they were very grateful that this tree wasn't going to be going away because of the installation of this
Is
garage.
that the one on the right of that photograph?
It is indeed.
There's a similar one to the left. And I've paid a lot of money to trim them. I think they're as old as the neighborhood.
And you're retaining the existing approach, the driveway?
Yeah, there's a 14-foot driveway there, and we think from the Sanborn maps, I think Katie brought this up to me, from the Sanborn maps that the driveway probably had direct access into the original garage because the Sanborn maps show a garage sort of in the location at the end of this driveway.
If you go to the picture that's looking straight on up the driveway, that one, the garage, from the Sanborn maps, it looks like the garage at this house used to be right in line with the garage that's there at the neighbor's house that you would think this driveway is driving right into from that photo. But at one point, they were in a row.
Right. My neighbor's garage is my property line, so that made that proposition a little difficult. And so to put the garage in the back corner of the lot seemed to be the least.
So there is no room then to go back in the same location with the garage that was there previously?
There are a couple of, who knows what the history of the lot was. My neighbors to the north, well, if you draw a line on the north edge of this driveway, you would be about 40 feet from the alley. My neighbor's home to the north is actually built facing Dewey on a lot that would be similar to that size. So if you went back two lots, my lot is 40 feet deep, my neighbor's lot is 40 feet deep, it's a fairly typical pattern in the neighborhood to take that 40-foot wide piece of property, go two lots deep, and build a home there. And that's the way my neighbor's home is built to the north.
You mean subdivide the lot?
Exactly. So I think that, or I posit that the location of the original garages was to accommodate a lot split so that you could build, in the future, you could sell that piece of your dirt and build another house there. It's quite common in the neighborhood. You can see it on the aerial. I provided an aerial, and you can see exactly what happened to the north of me.
So how deep is the lot currently?
The lot is 40 feet east-west and almost 150 north-south. In fact,
Okay, that's typical.
And I've never. Right. There's an odd condition on the north end of my lot. The right-of-way was vacated in 1927. As you know, when a right-of-way is vacated, half of that right-of-way goes to each adjacent property owner. My neighbors to the north, I don't know when this happened, how it happened, but my neighbors to the north, it's kind of assumed ownership of my 10-foot of the alley and parks on it, has beneficial use of it. I talked to an attorney. I could sue. I talked to my psychotherapist. My psychotherapist said, just let it go. You don't need it in your life. So I've decided to let that issue go. But I would like to build the garage in the back corner of the lot to where it's sort of off the street, where it's, not conflicting with my neighbor's garage right in front of you in this image here.
So on the map, the site plan that we have, the property line as shown here, is that the center line of the old alley? Or is
No,
that,
it's not. It's not, Jeff.
That is your old north lot line
That
before
is
the alley
correct.
was vacated?
It is 10 feet, actually, south of my actual property line if I was to go to court and drive some pins.
Very good.
I was going to comment about retaining the pattern of garages, but looking at that block, I don't see any pattern.
I think there are, you can see off from the aerial, there's about 5 garages on my side of the block, and some of them are really large. Some of them are really large. One of them is 2-story.
Yeah, the one 2 houses down.
Yeah. And one of the lots has a house and a garage in the backyard. So I don't think there's any, I can't determine any pattern of development there.
What was that?
There's a guy living up there in that garage.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. I'm having a little difficulty following all of this, but I...
About the therapist?
Yeah, well, it's about time. So your house faces 24th, and this is essentially a back entrance?
Yes.
Off of Dewey. Okay. There are other large garages in the neighborhood,
Yes.
and do they have... I'm sorry?
And on the block, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Larger than the one you're wanting to build?
Yes.
And do they have the double doors like we usually require in these kinds of garages?
There is no consistency. There are some relatively modern garages. There are some historic, historic as in they look older than some of the newer garages. I can't determine a pattern. The double door works a lot better for me from a practical standpoint, especially with the configuration of the driveway. I'm sympathetic to the guideline, but because the garage will be substantially, you won't even be able to see the garage or the garage doors from the street once the gate is in. I figured we could negotiate, especially if I promised to take the metal shed and put it in a dumpster.
I think one thing about, we discussed this at a workshop, Suzanne, before you were on the commission. Jeff did diagrams. It kind of depends on the orientation of the garage. A 20-foot width is hard to put 2 doors in, and if you have a 22.5-foot width, then you kind of have more space and it looks more appropriate. So it's kind of a functional and aesthetic thing also.
Right, trying to actually manage a functioning garage that fits within the square footage
of our guidelines.
Of the guidelines, which is another topic of discussion. But that actually fits 2 single doors is very difficult to actually accomplish.
So,
and maneuverability has been a reason why the commission has allowed for a double door, even one that actually faces directly out onto a side street.
I mean, we have allowed this on alleys, but we did approve. There was an approved garage across the street where it's under construction, where they asked for a single and they had to change their application to a double. This one is similar, to me it's more similar to a alley exception.
Exactly.
Where we don't have, where the orientation doesn't allow for the curve. Anyway.
Right.
It's
because of maneuvering.
Yeah. It's kind of ironic that if I flipped it to the alley, which I still own half of, we could probably make an argument for the double door that you've allowed in the past, but I don't want to go to war. I don't want to go to war in the alley.
Okay.
Staff had also had a comment on the skylight, or skylights.
Forgot about that.
Yeah,
Either be removed or moved to a non-visible.
Yeah, I think staff asked if I would flip them and put them on the other side. But which is fine. It's fine. It's, it's not very sustainable or from a solar standpoint, but...
West side versus the east side?
Yeah, right, exactly. And the east side is shaded by the tree, and the west is not. But, if I have to make that concession, we can do that.
Then, are there any other comments or questions? Okay. I'm going to make a motion to approve.
The things that the proposed materials to be revised would be the 6-inch hardy plank instead of the original proposed material for the exterior, and that the second condition that the skylights be moved to the west side.
The other things to call out were that a steel pedestrian door was proposed and a steel garage door was proposed.
And have those been changed?
So I don't think the applicant at this point has revised either of those. We have approved steel pedestrian doors on garages in some locations when it's minimally visible. It's something that's not called out as not allowed in the guidelines, but the guidelines say materials such as, et cetera, are allowed.
Right.
We typically have not approved steel garage doors in districts where they're not called out as allowed in the guidelines.
Right. Do you have some substitutions there?
I think I've forgotten what is permitted or allowed.
It's
virtually everything but steel.
Yes.
If you'd like to bring a hemp garage door, we'd be happy to.
I've done a little research on it. There are some kind of faux wood. There are some doors out there that have a steel frame but have kind of wood
interior
products on them.
Right.
That's one of them approved.
Solid wood, wood veneer with a concealed metal frame, or composite materials, including fiberglass or wood fiber.
There we go.
Yes.
One of those.
One of those.
We can definitely do one of those.
And then the last one would be the exterior door. Did you specifically call that out in your?
And I would, what I would think would be practical and
It just says solid wood. A new garage pedestrian doors may be solid wood with wood frames or alternate door and door frame materials such as composite wood or aluminum clad wood.
For locations that are not visible from the public right-of-way.
Right.
Otherwise, it shall be solid wood.
Right. There's your choice.
What were my choices?
If
it's not visible from the street, what were my choices?
This is one that says alternate materials such as composite wood or aluminum clad wood. So I think that's where the commission has, in some cases, seen some wiggle room to allow a steel pedestrian door if they felt that it was not visible.
That's not how I wouldn't suggest that. I don't think that that's what it's, my opinion would be it doesn't say that. It says either wood, composite wood, or aluminum clad wood. How would we be able to do a steel?
Well, because it's alternate materials such as. So the such as is like, these are suggestions.
We generally don't do the alternate material on the
limited
garage
to.
doors. I think that in the past we've done either the listed or the wood. So
okay.
The garage door and the pedestrian door would just need to come to Katie.
Okay.
Okay. So is that sort of a motion?
I was just trying to clarify what we were asking.
Well, I'll make a stab at motion.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I move to approve HPCA 16-00126, items 1 and 2, with the specific findings as listed in the staff report, with the conditions that the proposed materials as specified that we've discussed today, siding will be 6-inch hardy plank, and the trim will be wood. The doors will be as permitted by the guidelines, and all of those materials will be submitted to staff prior to release of the CA, and that the skylights will be either removed or relocated to a non-visible location.
Visible from the street.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Jeff Parks and second by Joe Meacham.
Mr. Chair, could I have clarification, just for because I'm trying to understand all this. Okay, so our choice here is, could this garage be bigger? I'm not necessarily going to, I'm just asking for
500 square feet is our guideline.
That's our guideline.
450. Excuse me, 450.
450, isn't it?
Right. So this one is,
Okay. And so our choice is approve this garage with the single door, or waive the guideline and require a bigger garage and double doors, essentially.
We have approved 450 square foot garages with 2 doors. You would have to put the doors on the
Long
longer
side.
side instead of the shorter side, which is a challenge depending on the configuration of the lot.
then he couldn't fit his Cadillac in. So.
Well, and we go back to,
Right.
I could make it bigger. If the doors are big deal. I could sure make the garage bigger.
And to clarify, the 450 isn't the hard and fast, every garage forever and ever, amen size. That's kind of the baseline allowed size, and if there's justification for a larger garage, we have approved larger garages based on other factors.
But the commission has been
really,
very...
But not on the car.
The commission
Not
has
based
been
on that, right?
very strict on keeping that garage size. So,
Okay. That answer your question, Suzanne? Okay, it's moved and seconded, and I'm getting ready to call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, it's been approved.
Thank you very much.
Conditions. Thank you.
HPCA 16-00127 at 837 Northwest 39th Street, Crown Heights, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application of Linda Sykes for certificate of appropriateness to 1, convert back door and a 5-foot window to sliding door elective, 2, replace shutters elective, 3, close window opening on east side of house elective, and 4, replace driveway in kind elective. And we wanted to note in the staff report there was kind of a slip where we recommended approval of all the items and hadn't really intended to recommend approval of the shutters, but we're kind of in the midst of discussion with the applicant about whether there would have been that type of shutters on the house historically based on the age of the house, as well as their own investigation of having wood shutters built. So I'll let, and I know the applicant's been working more closely with Angela on that issue, so I'll let them clarify.
Linda Sykes, 837 Northwest 39th Street.
Okay, welcome. Thanks for waiting. All right, any questions? Linda. Any comments on the shutters? That was the item.
I had that listed as a question prior to, what have y'all decided, or what are you proposing?
Yes, well, we do know that the construction of the house was begun in 1949, but we don't know the exact date the construction was finished. So assuming it was not finished till 1950, and the shutters might not have been put on right when the construction ended, if they were put on a year or two later, then vinyl shutters would have been the original shutters that were put on the home. And the pattern I proposed was a pattern that was used in the beginning of the 1950s in vinyl shutters.
and that's the black raised panel shutter?
Katie, do we have a specific listing in our guidelines in regards to shutters? Angela, is there something in the guidelines that specifically addresses shutters?
It's on page 5.
Okay.
talks about that they are only permitted where they existed historically, and that they are appropriate to the style and character of the house, that you remove them if they are inappropriate, and that shutters must be half the width of the window and mounted to be or appear to be operational.
Yes, that's what it says.
Must be half the width of the window.
I'm not sure those eaves would allow for half the width. I'm just noticing that from the picture right here. I would try to comply to that, definitely, if those, or the gables, I mean, above the window would allow for that.
But if they actually were that size, they would run into the trim, wouldn't they?
Right. Or they never originally made them.
That big.
Correct.
Yeah.
How long have these shutters been in place, do you know?
I don't know. I personally just purchased the home in the last month. Or two. Yeah. I've actually been working on it before I owned the house on the proposal.
Yeah, county assessor photos from 2012 show the shutters. Do you know if they went back? I mean, they're not going to go back further than 2004, so even that's not going to tell you if they're historic.
The louvered shutter is on there as far back as I could research the house, yes.
The what?
The louvered shutter.
And I did propose the raised panel, but either one would be fine with me. These are just not in very good condition, and I would just like to make them look nicer than they do.
Yeah, vinyl is a very, very unusual thing for us to approve. So coming up with the appropriate justification for that, if it's appropriate, it's difficult for us. So trying to work through that.
Thank you.
So we were told that you got a estimate for wood shutters.
Yes.
It's exorbitant. Is that right?
They're considerably more, yes.
Order of magnitude.
300 versus 2,000, or
Wow. So about
1,700 to 2,000.
6 or 7 times.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe at a later date I can do.
But a point of clarification, you want to replace these just to, they're not falling apart, that kind of thing, you just kind of want to update?
They are split and cracked. Yes, they are. They're not awful, but they are split and cracked in place.
There's some hail damage, correct?
Yes, there is.
I mean, would this, I don't know, does this come under the nature of, replacing, as a maintenance, if you're replacing it exactly like what it was? I think we just talked about one of this last year, a shutter deal where...
We did have a house where the person had removed all of their vinyl shutters and put back on wood shutters that were not an appropriate style, and then came back and said, well, can I just put my plastic shutters back that are sitting in my garage or whatever, and just pretend it never happened. And I think we did approve that. Is that right?
I think the commission did approve it, yes.
I think so.
I mean, I think that if you were replacing broken ones that were identical to what you have, then that's a maintenance. Wouldn't that be maintenance if you...
we
you have
say
to have the 50% rule.
Well, we say if it's replacement in kind of more than 50%, then you need a CA. If it's replacement in kind, if it's replacement of more than 2/3 of a component, then you need to go back with the appropriate component. Now, you could maybe make an argument on, are we talking about one shutter or all the shutters? But in any case, it's replacement of all the shutters.
And the guidelines do talk about the percentage of inappropriate materials, and typically vinyl is considered an inappropriate material.
I mean, I don't know, just coming up with alternatives is a temporary, temporary meaning the 5 to 10 year solution. True. In redoing houses, but, I mean, if you, so it would, are you saying that it wouldn't fit if you replaced them just like they were, like on the front of the house? If you said, hey, I'm leaving all of them because the ones on the front look the worst, I'm going to replace them as is? Does that follow the guidelines or not?
I don't mean to question your quote on the wood shutters, but I always look online, and I found
Exterior shutters is, I believe that exterior shutters, that online is where I got the price. They're very large. They're 51 and 71 inches long.
Okay.
Windows. They don't quite look that from the picture. So when you start getting into that size, I think that is what brings the price.
How long were they?
51 and 71. The shrubs are covering a lot of the window on the bottom.
But you did look online.
I did.
Yeah, okay.
I do think that's probably the best price.
I've had them made.
That sure sounds like a lot of money.
There's people in town that make them.
That's my proposal.
Doesn't seem like it should be this hard, does it?
It's been very interesting. I've enjoyed it, actually.
I mean, I think that we would, like, if a hailstorm came through and there was 20 of them and 8 of them were damaged, and somebody went and bought 8 and replaced them as is, I mean, I think that's maintenance. So,
Which is exactly probably what should have been done. They just were not replaced after the hail damage.
right.
They weren't addressed. I'm trying to address that.
I mean, I agree with the chairman. Wood would be the preferred material. I'm not saying that. I'm just.
It still seems exorbitant. I'd hate to, like I said, I was just looking, I had $500 for that size. I hate to approve vinyl if we haven't looked at all the options on wood, personally.
I've looked at several options. Yes.
Okay.
Well, and I would say the commission generally doesn't approve one thing or the other based on the cost in any case.
But we're looking at vinyl because the wood is so exorbitant in price, aren't we?
No, I mean, I think that's one of the issues that's one of the things that it's a concern for the applicant, but that's really not the commission's purview. If so, we would never approve a window replacement ever that was wood.
Well, if somebody came in and said that, it was 10 times a regular window, that would be a factor, but they're not normally, so.
Well, I just was wondering if truly vinyl was the first thing put on this house because of its age.
It would be my opinion, no.
Mine too.
It would not. It was not. They're not original. I mean, that would be my opinion, that if they were on there in the very beginning, they were probably wood.
Could we approve everything except the shutters and then ask for more information? Or?
If we could approve all of the items except for the shutters, continue the shutters if the applicant finds a good solution that is wood. Staff can approve that in the interim, or otherwise we can try to find more information to come back and make the case for the commission.
That would be preferable. You want to make that motion?
Can I comment on something first? The item 3, closed window opening on east side of house. Staff has recommended approval, but I would disagree with that. One question, Katie, is this an original opening?
Yes, as far as we know.
I don't believe it is. That was built on. That back part of that house was a porch. And I don't know when it was built on, but
We would need to know that to determine if its historic significance. We need to know what year it's built. But in the case let's just say it was, because we don't know either way. Section 3.6.6 supports the new window openings on the back facade, or the back 30% of the side elevation, but there's no mention of the guidelines supporting closing up an original window. I'm not seeing that our guidelines would support this, so we talk about if an original opening is presently blocked, consider reopening it. I just don't see anything there that suggests that it's okay to close an original opening.
There is nothing in the guidelines that does reference that. However, we have approved closing windows in the rear 30% based on that guideline that allows for the openings as well.
We have, because generally they're in relationship to a kitchen remodel. I mean,
Well, I don't know
there's
what
usually
those
like an
cases
extra
were,
window, or there's a,
Without knowing
but
what
I
those
understand.
cases were.
It is kind of big.
Or knowing what the discussion was, I would not be able to approve this item.
We should probably clarify that at some point, because we're really talking about alterations to the back elevation. If you can permit new openings, it seems like
Well, we've closed some up.
we have before, but that doesn't say that, so. Okay.
I think probably that we're probably more convinced when we see a floor plan that's making a case for either closing or opening.
Right, and
I mean, if you have a floor plan and you're doing remodeling and you turn it in and you say, hey, we're going to change these windows to a French door and we're going to do this and that as a result of what we're doing. So a floor plan might be more information.
And I think it would also be helpful, you're suggesting that maybe this was an addition. Well, what year was this addition built? Is it outside the period of significance? If it's more than 50 years old, it is historic. So I think that would be something for you to prove as well, in order to get my vote.
Okay.
My approval.
Okay.
And just to argue just because it's fun, you know, it says that the guidelines do say, considering new openings on the back, 30%. Conversely, you know, new opening, adding a new opening or removing an existing opening, making some sort of change on that back 30%, it appears there's some sort of latitude based on visibility from the public right-of-way.
Alteration.
Right. And
you know,
it's the very back corner of the home, no.
Right. So while I think it helps your case more if it's on an addition that's not historic, I don't know that it necessarily means a no from the entire commission if that's not the case. So if that makes sense.
I just struggle with, I mean, that's what we're talking about, new window openings. We're not talking about closing. I mean, it's specifically called out, new window openings.
Right.
So, Suzanne, not to put you on point, but from your attorney world, what is your thought on this?
Commissioner perspective. Yeah, we have an attorney.
Yes, well, as a commissioner, of course.
Well, as I was reading it, it says it allows for a change in the number of window openings, which would include openings.
I would assume that to be right. Even though it talks about new at the beginning, it talks about a change in the wording. So that to me that allows a little bit of latitude in the straight reading of it. Okay, and I'm not a lawyer, but you are. So.
What sayest you, Rita?
I
You agree?
think that your discussion is good, and you all have to decide it. And so I like it that you have an attorney member of the commission that can give you her legal perspective. Mine is going to be different from the commissioners, so it's good for you all to discuss it and to decide.
Thank you.
I think that for today, though, a continuance is what we would like to see just to help with that document.
And that's my interpretation of that guideline, and I'm just one commissioner. So everybody else may disagree with me, but it's not going to.
Could we vote on it today, or do we need, on the back, on the side window? Is that up for a vote now or not?
I mean, I would agree with, I think I would rather see more documentation.
Okay, got it.
Can we vote on the driveway?
We can vote on the driveway and the back door. Convert the back door to a 5-foot sliding door.
Well, on the back, aren't you also closing in?
I'm closing up a doorway because we're doing a kitchen remodel and bringing that out into that opening if I could. And then where the window is now would be the access out to the backyard.
Right. So there's a new opening plus, enlarged opening plus a closed-in opening.
And that's something the conversion of a window to French doors is something we've approved, I think, twice already today. So
Yeah, it's a closing
I
in.
don't know if she's been keeping tally marks. But
It's the closing in that everybody's discussing here, so. Want to continue the first three and approve the last one?
We can't, okay.
Well,
It doesn't,
I think that the number one is very much in keeping with proposed work that the commission has approved
Yeah. Yes.
on a regular basis.
But-
The conversion of the opening. Number
but it's-
three, the close the opening on the, to completely enclose and remove the opening on the side of the house.
But there were
was-
two things on number one, closing in the back door and enlarging the 5-foot window opening.
Well, it's
Together, the reason I would be putting that door,
It doesn't look like they're together, it looks like they're separate.
yes, but the reason I would want to put the sliding door is because we'd be closing up the other access to the outside.
That's what I mean, you're closing in a door and enlarging the window opening for a double door.
The window opening would not be enlarged much.
Well, no,
The
but
same
you're closing in the door.
Yes,
Right,
correct.
it reads, I think that the way it reads in on the staff report, convert the back door and a 5-foot window to a sliding door is misleading.
Yes, that is misleading.
So it should have been maybe better if it had been two items to close
Two
the-
items.
Yeah, okay.
That's what my point, if you're objecting to closing in and opening, we need it's the same
I think
argument.
she's in,
Well, I mean, that's closing and opening permanently, whereas, we tend to agree that the guidelines support maybe having a window and instead pulling it out and putting in a door or French doors.
I hate to say it, but you're closing in a door permanently here.
Well, I think the word permanently is not appropriate here. I shouldn't have used that word.
There's a door and a window, you're closing the door and putting the new, enlarging the current window on the back. I don't see the difference in the door.
I think my understanding is that the new door opening will span from the current window partially into the current door.
That's not what it
So
looks
you're
like in the
taking
drawing.
those, no?
no, it
you
it
look at the
appears,
drawings-
it doesn't say how big that space is, but if one is 6 feet and the window's 5'9", that would just be 3 inches.
If you look at the two drawings, I mean, to me,
Right.
it looks like the door's filled in. I'm not objecting necessarily, but it's the same argument, to me, if closing in an opening.
Would you like to change your mind about the side window, Neela?
I would not.
You could make a case that the back's not as critical as the front, the
Right,
side.
I mean, I think we are more lenient on the back, but, right.
Yeah, the side window isn't critical, but the doorway to the back is more critical to my time frame with my contractors and remodeling the kitchen and getting the job done.
But we meant, from a design guideline standpoint, we'd have more lenience on the back than we do on the side.
Correct, and the door that's being closed up is on the back.
Right, that's the point. So maybe we can use that as a reason to approve filling in a door.
Right, I just think that it needs to be, I mean, I would make a motion to approve, to continue 2 and 3, and approve 1 and 4, but I would like to clarify on 1
Clarify
exactly what's happening, which is the window is being converted to a French door and extended slightly, and the rear door is being completely removed.
That's what I think. So,
Maybe my choice.
Do we
Well, I'll
have
make
that
that-
on an elevation?
on the back, there's those two drawings that show before and after, the very back.
Very, very back?
Walls floating in the sky.
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to continue.
I'm not for sure what's what number. I don't have that in front of me.
What?
1, 2, 3, and 4. Is that what? I don't know which ones you are approving.
Oh,
okay.
One is the back door and the sliding doors.
Okay.
2 is the shutters. 3 is the window opening, and 4 is the driveway.
On the east, window opening on the east.
Right.
I'm going to
Thank you, my left.
move to continue items 2, replacing the shutters, and 3, closing the window opening on the east side of HPCA 1600127 to the, can you get more information by, it's always next Tuesday,
Yeah.
correct?
So,
For the side window?
yep.
For the
I
side
think that'll
window
be
and the
pretty easy.
shutters, which, the shutters, you could still continue that later on if you didn't get the info. I mean, you still could continue to submit information to Katie for a while.
Yes.
To the October,
Or to September 7th.
September, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
the September 3rd.
September 7th.
September 7th meeting.
For the side window?
And the shutters.
Yes, ma'am.
And what's your findings?
Do I have to have findings?
We don't usually do findings with the continuance.
Those are just continued.
Oh, continue, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Joe Meacham, seconded by Neela Crank Clements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, items 2 and 3 are continued to October. And
I make a motion for HPCA 1600127 to approve item 1 with the clarification. Let's see, item 1. With the specific findings noted by staff and the clarification that the French door, that the new French door is going to fit approximately in the existing window opening, and that the existing back door will be filled in.
Correct. You are correct.
I don't know if that's important or not, but.
Sure.
Okay, that's what we want.
Well, this is
And
maybe
that's
because
for item 1.
That's why we continued item 3, in my opinion. So can you give a reason why we're approving it
Why we're
for
approving that?
back on item 1? Is it because it's on the back?
Because design review is more flexible at the rear of the structure.
Yep.
We're not visible from the public right-of-way in order to make appropriate changes to enhance livability, such as installing patio doors while preserving the historic character. So we have a little more flexibility at the rear of the house.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
Second.
Moved by
Oh,
Joe-
I'm sorry, I have one that
sorry.
and approve item 4 as part of that.
I still second.
Okay. Oh, with the findings included by staff in the staff report.
Okay, it's been moved by Joe Meacham, seconded by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, items 1 and 4 are approved.
Thank you.
For all that.
And we'll work
Thank
on
you.
the other 2.
Okay, that concludes our cases. On to item 7, other business.
A and B were already acted upon. Our final one is C, Certified Local Governments in Oklahoma Annual Report. This is a report that we submit to the State Historic Preservation Office each year on our Certified Local Governments grant. It's a little bit odd because we're submitting it before the grant is over. But that's just how the timing of it works with getting it through the commission and through city council for their approval. Happy to try to answer questions if you have any, but we're basically just authorizing the chair to sign off on that report.
I make a motion to, what?
Oh, let me find it.
To authorize the chair to.
Do my thing.
To execute the report.
To execute the report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Joe Meacham and seconded by Suzanne Broadbent. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that has been recommended, right? Authorized. All right, and now on to 8, communications and reports.
Administrative approvals. No withdrawals or administrative closures to report. We did not include on here, but just yesterday, the National Register nomination for the Civic Center went to City Council, and that was recommended as eligible and forwarded on to the Oklahoma Historic Preservation Office. So that'll keep going on through the process. Nothing to report from Board of Adjustment or Planning Commission.
Okay.
And I don't think we have any activity to report from on potential landmarks.
We've seen some great fruition from that, though.
Yes.
Good job.
Yeah, see today. Municipal counselor? Nothing. Okay. Next meeting, next regular scheduled meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission is September 7th, 2016 at 2 p.m. Municipal Building right here. New applications for this meeting were received August 2nd, 2016. New information on project continued from today's meeting to the upcoming meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 o'clock Tuesday, August 9th. And 2, the next regular scheduled workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, September 14th, 2016 from 11:30 to 1:30 p.m. at 420 West Main Street, Suite 900. And are there any items from commissioners? And any more citizens? Lisa? That's that Lisa back there? Who's that? No, okay. I thought it was somebody else. If there's no citizens to be heard, then we're adjourned. Thank you. I thought that was Lisa Croster sitting back there.
Katie, when's our next workshop and what are we discussing?
September 14th.
Oh, What day did